What is up, everybody? Welcome to the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J Cal, and this is a Doobie Tuesday. Doobie Tuesday? Yeah, because we are sponsored by Doobie. Dubby? It's Dubby. I said it wrong. Oh, wait. Now we're going to lose our sponsorship. Dubby is an energy drink that I very much enjoy, and here's a little bit more about it. Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby. And we're drinking Dubby today, too. We'll be drinking Dubby every day. But that doesn't mean I don't still enjoy a sparkling ice, a carbonated, non-caffeine, no-sugar beverage, in case they want to sponsor us as well. Hey, it is Tuesday. It's the hour before Power. And what's going on? What in the world is going on in the world of professional wrestling? More so, what's going on in the NWA? As our good friend in the chat, Dodie has been a super fan of the National Wrestling Alliance, and Dodie has kind of hinted at something over the years, and that is there's a 5-year window. And every 5 years, something tends to change for the National Wrestling Alliance. Some sort of big shakeup. And we can go all the way back to when the WWF was invaded by Jim Cornette and the National Wrestling Alliance. They brought in Jeff Jarrett. They brought in the Rock and Roll Express, Howard Brody, Dennis Corluzzo. You guys might remember that happened at the end of 1997, right around the beginning of 1998. 5 years later, Impact would jump into the screens. We would have TNA Wrestling, Total Nonstop Action. It's a little bit less than 5 years, but you get the point. And for 5 years, the NWA had an exclusive agreement with Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, to license its titles and likenesses. So for the course of that 5-year period, when we saw champions like AJ Styles and Jeff Jarrett and Rhino and Raven and Christian Cage and all of that, that was a 5-year window where the TNA Wrestling basically controlled the NWA World titles. Sting, can't forget Sting. Then 5 years after that, that's what we call the Bob Trowbridge era of the NWA. That's when the territory system really kind of kicked off with promoters like Dave Marquez, Ken Taylor, Mike Porter, Fred Rubenstein. There was a era of kind of good feelings, or maybe they weren't such good feelings, where you had NWA promotions working together. You had promotions in the Southwest. You had promotions in California. The NWA was very visible on television with NWA Saw, NWA Mountain State, NWA On Fire, and, of course, NWA Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. There's a lot of positive in that time. Then, of course, there was a shakeup, the lawsuit. And Bruce Tharp takes over the NWA. And at that point, the NWA is consolidated into one ownership. Up until that point, it was owned by many different members. At this point, now it was owned by one company, International Wrestling Corporation, which, of course, was owned by Bruce Tharp. He had two partners. Jettisoned them out the way. For a short time, they were working with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So in that 5-year window, they had some peaks and valleys as well. At the end of the 5 years, though, things got really shaky for the National Wrestling Alliance, and it had to lean on some smaller wrestling promotions. Things weren't looking well. Bruce was looking to sell. Hell, he wanted to sell the WWE. He wanted to sell the New Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of offers were made, but Billy Corgan was the winning bid. Billy Corgan was the one that came in and purchased the NWA. And for the first 2 years of his ownership, had to explain what he bought and what he had. And during that time, on the backs of Tim Storm and Nick Aldis, Billy Corgan built his vision of what the National Wrestling Alliance would be. That drive for the 10 pounds of gold, the showcase of Tim Storm, bringing Tim Storm to the American forefront, to a national audience, is really what helped drive the early days of Billy Corgan's vision of the NWA. And of course, it was on December 9th, 2017, when Nick Aldis would become world's heavyweight champion in CZW, and everything changed. He would go on the Aldis crusade, taking the title to the United Kingdom, taking the title all across the United States, including Hollywood, California, a place where the title kind of disappeared from 5 years earlier. We would see the world's heavyweight champion defend in China. He would defend in Australia. And he would be part of one of the biggest matches in independent pro wrestling of that year. And I'm talking about All In. Of course, Nick Aldis lost to Cody Rhodes, but after about a month, regained that title at the NWA 70th anniversary show. And again, went right back onto that horse, defending the title within the confines of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Ring of Honor. And again, in the Northeast, the Northwest, the Southeast, the Southwest, and all points in between, Nick Aldis was a traveling champion. The NWA was building its legacy on the work that Nick Aldis had put in for the National Wrestling Alliance. The NWA, the 10 pounds of gold, all of it was being built on the backs of what Dave Marquez, Dave Lagana, Nick Aldis, and William Patrick Corgan, the brain trust of the NWA at the time, had put into it. It wouldn't be long before the NWA would have its next pay-per-view. Of course, we had Crockett Cup 2019. I also forgot the pay-per-view, the New Year's Retribution pay-per-view, also earlier in 2019. That would lead to the debut of Power, which was kicked off in October of 2019. Again, on the same feud, on the same back of Tim Storm and Nick Aldis. And this would usher in a bevy of talents to the National Wrestling Alliance, none of which would be strictly business. We would see Nick Aldis surround himself with championship material, having the Wild Cards, who were the tag team champions, join him along with Kamille as the most dominant faction in the NWA. But slowly and probably hastily because of COVID, the NWA came to a halt. The pandemic slowed down everything. It stopped. The NWA nearly was extinct. Talents were getting out of their contracts to go pursue other opportunities. The NWA did not produce any original content during this time. We did have Carneyland, but of course, some circumstances outside of the NWA put an end to that as well. Towards the end of the year, the NWA presented Shockwave, which was just a reconfigured, different approach to what United Wrestling Network and Primetime Live had put out a few months prior. These matches were available on YouTube and featured, again, our world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis. But once Power returned, the NWA momentum had changed. No longer was that 10 pounds of gold touring this country of ours. It was no longer having international defenses. And Nick Aldis's spot within the company changed. Because although he was the ambassador for the World's Heavyweight Championship and the ambassador for the NWA, after a meteoric rise by defeating the likes of Trevor Murdoch and defeating the likes of Aaron Stevens, he would go on to finally lose the 10 pounds of gold to Trevor Murdoch at the NWA 73rd anniversary show. Now, Aldis, true to his word, said he would step aside and allow Trevor Murdoch to run with the title, which he did. And all of that changed the minute Matt Cardona walked in the building. Nick Aldis, as your world's heavyweight champion, again, was world's champion for over 1,000 days. Something that hasn't been replicated since, probably won't ever be again. But when Matt Cardona came in and defeated Trevor Murdoch for that 10 pounds of gold, it was Aldis's mission to regain that spotlight, to recapture what rightfully he thought was his, and to gain that 10 pounds of gold yet once again. But some chicanery at the Crockett Cup 2022 prevented him from winning that title. And as reported earlier today on Busted Open Radio, Billy Corgan flat out mentioned that the two, Nick Aldis and Billy Corgan, were working a angle where, they worked themselves into a shoot, I guess is the easiest way to say it. There was some bad blood, some animosity that was supposed to be just part of a work. We were just all supposed to be confused, and there was going to be some sort of storyline involved with it. So much so that Nick Aldis was pulled out of the world title match at the NWA 74th anniversary show. And there it was. We called it here on this podcast. We said it right there. Guys, don't get yourself worked into a shoot. And they did. The whole idea of the boss versus the champ, or the boss versus the guy, I mean, it's been done to death for years. I mean, we saw it with, obviously, the most well use of that was Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon in the WWE during the Attitude Era. But since then, it's not ever been a good idea to work the boys and have that worked animosity between the talent and the front office. It just doesn't ever work. And it failed to work again. It was reported by Pro Wrestling Insider. And some of you who've subscribed to Nick Aldis's Instagram account saw this news firsthand, that he had opted to not re-sign with the NWA. It was Nick Aldis's option to not come back. He made that choice. Nick Aldis decided it was time to move on. The NWA understood this. At that point, we're still going to allow him to fulfill his obligations. He was still scheduled to be at Hard Times 3. And of course, the next night at the Revolution, the Power Trip taping. Sorry, I forgot the name of the show. But then, as it were to happen, Aldis continued to discuss why he made that decision. And he made those very private information very public, sharing it on Twitter and Instagram. And well, it sounds like Nick Aldis was very unhappy with his position with the NWA. So much so that Billy Corgan has sent him home. He will not be at Hard Times 3. He will not be appearing the next night. Now, Billy Corgan, again, on Busted Open Radio, said this is 100% not a work. This is a total shoot. And that they will not be able to come to some sort of agreement, that Nick Aldis is sitting home getting paid. He has 55 days left on his contract. He will be a free agent at the end of January 1. Which begs the question, man, what the hell happened? Where did this all go wrong? This relationship between William Patrick Corgan and Nick Aldis was basically the fundamentals of what built this version of the NWA. Like, make no mistake about it, there could have been other people in the same position that Nick Aldis was in. In fact, Nick Aldis wasn't the first choice, wasn't the second choice. I don't even think he was the third choice. But when he got the ball, god damn, did he run with it. Did he not take the title to the United Kingdom? Sure, it was David Marquez that put him on a plane to China, but you had to show up. You couldn't have just been a haircut and wrestling tights and get over. Nick Aldis got over in China, in a market that did not understand pro wrestling, and a market that didn't even understand English. Nick Aldis was able to get over. Nick Aldis put in the work. And it's I know if you're watching this podcast and you haven't been here for a while, or maybe you are a regular, you might be confused right now, because why is J. Cal saying so many positive things about Nick Aldis? Well, truth be told, I enjoyed Nick Aldis as world's heavyweight champion. Truth be told, Nick Aldis in his first run as world's heavyweight champion might be one of the greatest runs with the 10 pounds of gold we've ever seen. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that he did this all on his own. Yes, Nick Aldis developed the right relationships. Hell, you don't get onto a House of Hardcore tour in Australia without having the right connections. Tommy Dreamer is a huge Nick Aldis fan. He put him on those shows because not just because he was the world's heavyweight champion, because he was Nick Aldis. That matchup between Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis could have been a stinker at All In. It could have sucked, right? Nick Aldis knew he was going to do the job to Cody. He knew he was dropping the belt to a son of a former world's heavyweight champion. We knew that was going to happen. That was the roadmap to All In was that Cody was going to win the title and do what his dad did. Aldis went out there and worked his ass off. Aldis went out there and made Cody look like $1 million. Did he have to? I don't think so. He went out there to prove a point. And when that title came back on Nick Aldis, damn, I was there. I was there in Nashville at the fairgrounds, in the old fairgrounds arena. The crowd loved it. And as much as that audience was there for Cody, they were there for Nick too. Nick Aldis carried the NWA on its back for a very long time, for at least 2 years straight. But once the NWA got to power, and once the NWA started producing television, what they needed from their World's Heavyweight Championship changed. What they needed from their World's Heavyweight Champion was different. And although Nick Aldis was great at getting the NWA to the dance, I don't know that Nick Aldis was the guy to continue to take them there. A lot of us, not just JCal, a lot of the fans on the Alliance blog, a lot of the guys who watch this podcast every Thursday night and every Tuesday had some Nick Aldis fatigue. And I got to be honest with you, it's been refreshing to see Nick Aldis not in the title hunt. And I was very much looking forward to seeing what Nick Aldis and Odinson were going to bring to the table at Hard Times 3. But evidently, that's not going to happen. The divorce between Nick Aldis and the NWA will have repercussions for everyone. Not just Billy Corgan, not just the National Wrestling Alliance, not just Nick Aldis, but us as fans too. We're going to be deprived of one of the best athletes to lace them up. Nick Aldis is a phenomenal pro wrestler. Send that to the dirt sheets. Jake Howe put over Nick Aldis. We're going to lose a very great talent. But that means somebody else is going to gain. And I'm super excited to see what's next for Nick Aldis. Because even though he called me a ham sandwich jabroni, that guy's a star. And now I don't know if he's going to show up in AEW. In fact, I can almost bet you he won't. He might show up in the WWE. That would be interesting. But there's some bad blood there too, isn't there? So what are his options? Impact? MLW? Is that really the best place for a former World Heavyweight Champion? Hell, maybe Nick Aldis decides to go on his own. Maybe he becomes that ambassador to the the Polish wrestling promotion he appeared at last year. Maybe he has plans to go back to Pro Wrestling Noah. I don't know what's next for Nick Aldis, but I'm excited, and I'm sitting here with bated breath to see what's next for Nick Aldis. But also, I want to say this. The NWA doesn't need Nick Aldis. And everybody who posts about how the NWA is now going to die because Nick Aldis is gone, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. It is not. Okay, guys? It's not. Nick Aldis wasn't the main event for this pay-per-view, and they've damn near sold out. Nick Aldis is a hell of a talent, but the NWA is thriving. At this point in time, I have seen more great talent show up in the NWA than any time before. Well, I mean, in the modern era. You've got guys like the Pope, who's waiting for his opportunity. He shows up and shows out every single time he's on television, right? Trevor Murdoch's carrying that 10 pounds of gold, and we got the best version of Trevor Murdoch we've ever had. You got Matt Cardona, who, yes, I know his allegiances aren't 100% NWA, and he has other opportunities and other places he needs to go. But while he's here, he's still a threat to the 10 pounds of gold. Lest we not forget the king of Fox News, Tyrus, who's second pay-per-view, he's in the main event. And I'll be the first one to admit, Tyrus shocked me at the 74th anniversary show. He put on a hell of a match with Trevor Murdoch. We also have EC3. And we have Thom Latimer. And let's not forget the grand slam of them all, Jack Stane. There are so many good, talented individuals on this roster that the sum is greater than the single, right? The individual. I know I butchered it. There's so much good talent in the NWA that this is not a death knell at all. It's simply a divorce. Sometimes people fall out of love. Sometimes mommy and daddy can't make things work. And sometimes the grass is greener elsewhere. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I wanted to see Nick Aldis finish his wrestling career with the NWA. I was hoping that at some point we would see Nick Aldis as world's heavyweight champion once again. And who knows? Time heals all wounds. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of humble pie to be eaten before either Billy Corgan or Nick Aldis will work with each other again. And I guess that's where it's kind of sad, but we've seen it before. Hogan and Vince, that relationship went south and it happened again. Hall and Nash, and I'm talking specifically about the WWE, but there's lots of times where wrestlers have left on bad terms and have come back down the road. And who knows, maybe that's what we'll see. But I'm not going to hold my breath for it. Of course, the NWA wishes Nick Aldis all the best in his future endeavors. And I'm sure Nick Aldis says the same to the NWA. But this is what's exciting about pro wrestling. This is exciting about this era that we're in. What's next for Nick Aldis? We're all just going to have to wait and watch. What's next for the NWA? Starts Saturday night. Order your pay-per-view now. Hard Times 3. Headlined by Trevor Murdoch, Tyrus, and Matt Cardona. Co-headlined by Kamille, KiLynn King, and Chelsea Green. It's going to be a great night. Order your pay-per-view now. We'll see what's up next for Odinson. We'll see what's next for the NWA. But it's an amazing time to be a fan. And although a lot of this stuff that I would consider background information that isn't necessarily for us to be aware of, isn't necessarily enough for us to know about, is being showcased and shared on social media. That's kind of that's the bad part of a divorce. Sometimes it gets ugly. Maybe there will be a reconciliation at some point down the road. We'll have to just wait and see. But all I can say is stay tuned. Man, it is a Tuesday. That was fun, guys. I just went off for 23 minutes and you guys listened. Awesome. There's a full house here tonight. We don't normally have 21 people watching, so I think this is a hot topic, and I definitely want to hear what everyone has to say. So we're going to go through your comments, guys. If we get to the show tonight, we'll talk about the show. If not, we're just going to read comments all night because this is what's important. This is what's happening in the NWA. So let's talk about it, right? NWA Gold is quick to say, what's causing all this? NWA racket. Yeah. Nice pun. Oh, by the way, guys, check this out. New merchandise in the store. We have beanies. Can you see that? You guys see that? All right. We've got the new hat logo. This one's for my wife. Do you see that? All right. It's got the new logo. It's the, I don't know. Some people think that's kind of cool. Your boy Jay prefers just a regular black hat anyways, but my head was getting hot with the beanie. Check out the merch store. Link is in the bio. All right. Our pal Rick is here. What's up, Rick? He says here. What's up? He's James Bell's in the house. What's up, James? And Heaves is in the house. Dodie says, congrats on the new sponsor. Guys, if you want to enjoy some of this energy, what I love about it is I don't feel shaky afterwards. And again, it basically comes out to like one scoop equals one beverage, and there's like 30 scoops in a can. So it's like $1 a drink. If you purchase it, you get 10% off by using the link in the bio. Heeb says he's going to slide into my DMs about sponsorship questions. Slide on in, buddy. We have lots to talk about. Hey, Samar, I don't think I've seen you here on the show before. What is up? Thanks for tuning in tonight. Heeb said he voted for Santa and John Cena today for the midterms, but we should be voting for the mayor of Carneyland. Oh my gosh, the mayor of Carneyland. Dodie said Corgan passed October. He survived phase 1 of the 5-year curse. Now it means only just the beginning. Yeah. Daryl, what's up, Daryl? Yeah, there's no such thing as we don't practice that no shave November. We don't also practice that no other thing November. We're here. We're living for the now, my friend. No white lavender Jones, but maybe later. Jeremy's in the house. Poyo's here. Poyo says the first few seasons are so iconic. They had such a great chemistry. Now again, and Billy Corgan mentioned this today on Busted Open. I'm not breaking news here that Nick Aldis helped with a lot of the creative, and they had some disagreements about it. But back before the pandemic, there were multiple voices in that position. Dave Lagana and Dave Marquez, and they helped to sculpt some of these storylines. And what we got was, again, some iconic television. It'll never go back to that. That formula is gone. Oh, and Jim Cornette, too. Don't want to leave him out. So they had several talented people involved that they're gone. They're not coming back. So if you don't like what you're seeing with the NWA right now, I don't know that you'll ever like the NWA going forward. If you see things that you like and there's some things you don't like, that's cool. That's basically what it's going to be forever. It's never going to be catered to J-Cal. It's never going to be catered exactly to what you want. They're going to try to catch as many fans as they can. Paladin says they're all falling apart. No, we're good, man. This is good. This shakeup might be better for the NWA than a lot of you think. Mostly because they can't rely on old Aldis to save the day anymore. They're going to have to build their own stars. You know, the reason why they put Nick Aldis in that match with Matt Cardona at the Crockett Cup is because they didn't think they had anyone capable of doing it. Now they're going to have to rely on somebody. Either they're going to have to go out and get someone bigger and better than Nick Aldis, or they're going to have to build their own. There's plenty of guys on that roster that can fit that role. Tyrus says, Willie says, Tyrus looks like the debris that will clog your arteries. Oh, God. Poyo says, the 10 pounds of gold series is so amazing, too. It was. And look, that series is what really launched the NWA. We would not be here talking about the NWA right now if that 10 pounds of gold series never took off. Because I don't think without that, you don't get here. Doty said Nick Aldis still touring, defending the belt during the COVID recovery period until he lost the belt to Trevor. Doty, yes and no. Like, he wasn't the same. And even before COVID, his title defenses dropped significantly. I encourage you to go check out cagematch.net and see the significant difference in 2019 when his title defenses dropped. I mean, of course, he defended on the NWA pay-per-views. He was defending in Ring of Honor. He had a few matches in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but a lot of those defenses started to diminish. You know, that tour of the UK didn't really carry the same weight it did the first time. He didn't make a return trip to Australia. You can look, I'm not saying anything that's not true. His title defense diminished greatly in his second run as World's Heavyweight Champion, specifically after Power started. Wrestling with MMA says, I would like to see the NWA revive that series, and I believe he's talking about the 10 pounds of gold series. It was a great tool to get the NWA going. I don't know that they could still use that the way they did, but it would be such a meaningful piece to bring back if they could do it the right way. But now there's so many of the creative minds behind that are gone. I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Thunder Rosa was on TV defending her belt. Aldis was on indie shows. I mean, Thunder Rosa was defending her her title, the NWA Women's Championship, everywhere. Aldis had like 3 appearances during the pandemic. One of those was for United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live. Thunder Rosa made 2 of those appearances. Thunder Rosa also wrestled for the SWE Fury, and also wrestled for AEW during that time, as well as Mission Pro defending her title. Yeah, Busted Open is a great program. I very much appreciated them letting Billy just kind of vent today. You heard Dave LaGreca is, he kind of get that he's on Aldis' side, which, I mean, I understand personal relationships. He considers the Aldis family friends. I mean, he has Mickey James as a co-host on Wednesdays. So I get why he wants to protect Nick Aldis and the Aldis family. Makes perfect sense. Bully Ray has less dog in the hunt He has less connection to either the brand or to Nick Aldis, and kind of made out a lot of points that resonated with me with regards to the NWA. If you guys haven't heard it, I believe they're on most podcasting. If you don't have SiriusXM, you could probably go listen to it now. But wait till after the show. Doty says Sion probably the one who tried to replicate that again, albeit with the national title. Yes, at this point, 10 pounds of gold should be Sion, but with the national title. I don't know, give it a new name. But yeah, Sion is the guy out there really putting in the work with that national title. Never get into a wrestling storyline with those you love. It never works out. You never work yourself into a shoot. Nancy and Kevin Sullivan and Chris Benoit worked themselves into a shoot all those years ago. It just doesn't work out well. And how do you come back from that? It's kind of difficult. Paladin said, he said the NWA was an embarrassment. Look, there's things, some of the things that Aldis have said is the same exact things that I've been saying for the last 2 years. Some of the things that are happening in the NWA, I don't like. You know, I'm not a big Rolando guy, right? I'm certainly not a Gags the Gimp guy. The Miserably Faithful is not a whole lot for me. The question mark stuff is like disgusting to me. But like then you have stuff that I really do enjoy, like Pollo and the Thrillbilly, like La Rebellion, like Hawk Ari for the short time they were here, the OGK. I really like what's happening with Jack Stain and Chris Silvio. You know, I really like this new and improved Trevor Murdoch. There's a lot of good things that are happening. We just need to focus on those good things, and hopefully the NWA can put more effort into that stuff and less on some of the sillier, more gimmicky stuff. Aldis thinks he's CM Punk. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Aldis thinks he's CM Punk. And look, let's be real about this, right? Aldis has every right in the world to go explore his opportunities. I don't fault Aldis for wanting to see if the grass is actually greener. He did his time, guys. He ran with the NWA for 5 years. You know, like Adam Pearce had about 5 years and had multiple runs as world champion. You know, he did what he had to do, and he shouldn't be punished because he wants to explore these other opportunities. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that when he went out and started speaking negatively about the brand, I think Corgan had to do something. And I think if I was Billy, I think I would have just offered him his release. Say, hey, man, you can't be trashing us while I'm paying you. If you want to go, here's your release. But as long as I'm paying you, you got to be quiet. I mean, that's as a business owner, I wouldn't let someone trash my business while I'm paying them. I'd fire them on the spot. So I kind of get that. Paladin thinks that the Impact is looking at. Let me just read it. I think it's clear, Jay, what happened. If you watch Impact Wrestling, they are pushing Mickie James to the moon. She calls it her last run. No doubt she'll be champion. I'm sure the NWA told Mickie she couldn't be NWA champ, so she went to Impact. You know, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's the reason. You know, Mickie James, I think Mickie James would have been great as an NWA Women's World Champion, but right now they've got Kamille, and I think that's what they're focusing on. And I think that's the best use of their time right now. I think Kamille is over and should be over. Yeah, Paladin also said, reports say that Aldis felt he and his wife were disrespected by Billy. Yes, I've heard that as well. Billy sees it a different way, but again, you know, perception is reality. Willie says Aldis was a touring champion in the NWA. He was for the first reign, 100%, was one of the best. Dave Scooby asked, will Nick show up on Busted Open tomorrow with Mickie? Let's hope so. I mean, it'd be great radio if he does. And I certainly will be glued to the radio if he's on that show. But he also has an interview set up with Sam Roberts, and I think that's where we'll hear his side of the story. Paladin says first Corny, Lagana, and now Aldis. I don't know, man. Hey, look, you're right, but I don't think Cornette, Lagana, different story. Aldis did his time, man. 5 years in a wrestling promotion is a pretty solid amount of time. 5 years as one of the top guys in that promotion, again, is a very long time. I think the NWA needs a break from Aldis just as much as Aldis probably needs a break from the NWA. And who knows, maybe Aldis as a free agent lands back in the NWA at some point. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm just, it's probably not likely at this point. But also you have to keep in mind too that if Aldis was so offended by the brand, then he's doing the right thing by distancing himself. That's the thing too. His name helped build this, right? You don't have the NWA as it is today without Nick Aldis. You could have put Eli Drake in that equation. I don't think LA Knight would still be the same guy that Nick Aldis was for the NWA. He would have had a great run, but I don't know if it would have been the same. Paladin says Aldis is trying to hurt pay-per-view sales doing all this a week before. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this was the best timing for this to be broken down like this. It sucks because instead of us talking about the pay-per-view right now, instead of Billy Corgan being on Busted Open talking about the pay-per-view, we're talking about Nick Aldis. We're talking about Billy Corgan. And the emphasis should have been on Trevor Murdoch, Matt Cardona, and Tyrus. Tyrus has been delivering some killer promos, man. This dude is fired up for this show. Don't be surprised if he walks out with the 10 pounds of gold, man. I'm not kidding. Boy, so this is going to be a huge shift in the NWA. 100%, man. 100%. The NWA is going to be a different animal without Nick Aldis. That's 100% true. But it also means that, if Nick Aldis was compensated very well for his time in the NWA, at least according to Billy, and I've heard Aldis say in the past that he made a lot of good dime working for Billy. So that frees up money for him to pursue other free agents that are out there. Now, I don't know who's available at this point, considering that, every free agent is either back in the WWE or signed to AEW. But there's guys out there who would thrive in this opportunity, would thrive in the NWA. Sorry, I got to fly in the studio. Dodie says, the pay-per-view is already sold out. There's no need to panic. He's not wrong. The pay-per-view sold out. This fly's going to drive me nuts. Sorry. Chris Drummond says, no one wants him in AEW. I don't know if that's true, man. I can't really speak to that. I know Cody and Nick had a great match at All In. They had an equally good match at the NWA 70th anniversary show, and then no business between the two since. That's a little telling. Dodie says, and the biggest blow to the NWA losing someone is when they lost Lagana more than Corny. Even then, the NWA is still okay, so NWA will be okay. Yeah, I mean, that's God honest truth, guys. There was no one piece greater than the whole of the NWA. When Dave Marquez was gone, it was a blow. But you know what? Kyle Davis is doing great at the podium. When the NWA lost Royce Isaacs, okay. When they lost Ricky Starks, okay. Lost Colt Cabana, okay. When it lost Eddie Kingston, okay. Thunder Rosa, okay. It's just continued to go. And those pieces that were missing, yeah, they're still missed, but there's other pieces that have come into the brand that have been good. Chris Adonis, EC3, Matt Cardona, Trevor Murdoch got a bigger spotlight. The Pope got a bigger spotlight. Hell, the Pope wasn't even wrestling the first season of Power. Pollo does not want Nick to go to AEW. It's a terrible place for someone of his stature. He will be lost in the shuffle almost immediately. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's a good fit for him. I'm thinking maybe Ring of Honor, but even then, not 100% sure. Willie Bowen says, what if Nick Aldis shows up in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood? I will tell you this. Without a doubt, he will not show up in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Now, he might show up on the Memphis program, and I could see them using him quite a bit if he's willing to work that show, but he will not be in Hollywood. There was a fallout between him and David Marquez, and I don't think that will ever be repaired. Paladin says he may join his wife on Impact. That might be a good fit. Willie Bowen says that Draper and Jordan Clearwater are future world's heavyweight champions. Poyo crystallized what I've been saying this whole time. NWA is going to shift focus, redirect, and move into a new era. New stars will step up. There'll be new stars stepping up, and there'll be new people joining the program. Like, make no mistake about it. Billy Corgan isn't going to roll over and die because Nick Aldis left. He's not. He's got too much time invested, too much money invested. You know, he made a point to say, like, hey, I leave my family to go do this. That's how important it is to me. And if you know anything about Billy Corgan, his family is very important to him. So, Poyo says, when spots in the main event open, new individuals become stars. I mean, look in the last year. The writing has been on the wall for a while. The NWA, although still very much happy with Nick Aldis, pushed him to the side to make room for Matt Cardona, pushed him to the side to make room for Trevor Murdoch. Hell, Tyrus is now in the main event. Nick Aldis is not. And whether you like whether you like Tyrus or not is kind of irrelevant. They're trying to create another star with Tyrus. They're trying to create another star with Matt Cardona. They're trying to create another star with Trevor Murdoch. It worked for Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis his stature is here in the NWA. You can't take that away from anybody. He's the guy. Well, he's no longer the guy, but he was the guy. Now it's time for someone else to fill that role. Jeremy says, I'm not sure what the E would do with them either, though. He doesn't need to be in NXT, in my opinion, but I don't see him being a top guy on the main roster. He's the perfect guy for NXT, to be quite honest, because he can help with the younger talents, help them get over, help them with promos, help them in the ring. Let's not make any mistakes about it. Nick Aldis is great in the ring, and he would be a great rival for Braun Breaker. Doty says, don't sleep on Dak Draper, because if you did, then shame on you. Dak Draper, I think, has a big future in the NWA, and I could see big things happening for him as well. Paladin says, which one is mommy? They're both mommy, guys. That's the problem. I'm your daddy. Sorry. That's funny. Sorry. Willie says he wished that Harry Smith would have stayed with the NWA Pro. Me too, but for whatever reason, he's not. He's back in MLW. Poyo says WWE are likely interested in having a focal point for the new WWE Europe promotion on the horizon. That's a great point. That's a phenomenal point, actually, Poyo. Jeremy says, as much as I hate to admit this, Aldis is a top-tier guy. Yeah. Flair and Bischoff. Yeah, exactly, Roswell. Stranger things have happened. Chris Drummond, quit speaking this negativity into the universe, brother. Stop it. Willie says Flair and WCW and NWA. Yeah. Poyos points out 95% of the talent heading back to the WWE left bitter AF. Yeah, absolutely. And, time heals a lot. Money heals even more. Remember when they sent Mickie James home with a trash bag and sent her on her way, and then she was at the Royal Rumble this year? Doty says the venue held 400 seats and not included the balcony seats. They'll be okay, of course. I already prepaid the pay-per-view via All Access. Cool, Doty. Let me know if you guys see me. Let me know if you see the Alliance logo on the show. Of course, that's the Alliance logo if you're unfamiliar. Let's see more. The shakeup is real. The fallout will be very, very interesting and quite exciting. I think so too, Poyo. And that's the thing. I don't think this isn't a death knell, guys. This is like an opportunity for the entire roster. Step the F up. Step up. This might be your chance to break through that mid-card. This might be your chance to make it to the main event. Nick Aldis was great, but he wasn't a god. There's opportunities for everyone now. Everyone. Everyone. Especially Thom Latimer. Everyone. Chris says Rob Van Dam is the perfect replacement for Aldis. I don't know if Rob Van Dam's heart is in pro wrestling anymore, and I don't know. Maybe it is, but I know he's getting older. His promos have never been his strong suit. Yeah, he did some cool things, and I did like Rob Van Dam as a wrestler. I just don't know that an aging Rob Van Dam is the guy that you're going to carry the NWA with. And I know you put LOL, but I there's some truth to that too. I know, Chris. Let's see. Doty's welcoming that love for Thom Latimer. Wrestling with MMA says, I'm hoping that Aldis leaving it opens up the coffers to bring talent more regularly. Yeah, man. You got to remember before the pandemic, and I know he's not the biggest name, but we had Scott Steiner show up as a part of Strictly Business. We had the Villains Enterprise show up with Marty Skrull and Brody King. And I think PCO was on this way before COVID. And there's guys out there. There's still big names out there that could add to the NWA. Remember, not everyone in Ring of Honor has been re-signed. There's talent out there. And there's ways to improve this NWA brand. Hell, maybe working relationships with other companies. Maybe money has to finance some of that. Who knows? But there's opportunity abound. James says, bye, Nick. Sad to see Mickey go. I mean, for what it's worth, Mickey's been gone for a while. Mickey hasn't been there since the Crockett Cup. And even before then, she wasn't really much part of the show. Jeremy, we'll talk about that offline, but yeah, by using this code that's in the merch link, anyone who uses that code saves 10% off of W. And right now, I'm the only one obligated to talk about it. Media M5 says, Aldis is gone. We need a new mayor of Carneyland. I mean, maybe it's Trevor Murdoch. Hell, maybe it's Tyrus. I don't watch porn. It's deviant. Okay. Thanks, Paladin. Doty says, Mickey never really did anything notable in the NWA. So she's gone. Doesn't make a difference because she never really was. That's true. I mean, to a degree, she did help produce Empower. And I think that's going to be her legacy with the NWA. And for anyone who's, that was a good night for women's wrestling, period. Would it be nice for the NWA to do a second one? Yes. Does it make fiscal sense to do another one? I can't answer that. I hope so. I hope to see another one down the road. Medium 5. So right after Aldis said what he did on Instagram, he gets suspended. Thought he voiced his pleasure and said he would leave most likely beforehand. Something is fishy. Yeah, Medium 5, there's more going on that we don't know, obviously. What the NWA is saying, what they're admitting to is that basically they didn't like him disparaging the product. More than one place, I saw that Nick Aldis had mentioned he didn't like the way that Billy handled Mickie James. He didn't like the fact that that Billy had said that there wasn't enough premium female talent to do another pay-per-view. He didn't like the booking of the NWA, which, I mean, I don't like the booking of the NWA most of the time. A lot of the things that Nick Aldis said publicly, I don't blame him. I agree. But the difference is I don't work for the NWA. I don't get a paycheck from Billy Corgan. He does. Media M5 says, put the belt on Cordona. Roswell says, push Latimer now. Samir says, we need fresh. Paladin says, growing pains. Cardona ain't it either, Roswell says. Samar says, 10 pounds of gold series is what caught my eye in 2017. Me too, man. A lot of us did. Like, I was there in 2016. You guys, if any longtime viewer of this podcast or the website, I know Doty might know this, man, we almost shut the whole damn thing down in 2016. It was pathetic. I was getting tired of seeing Bruce Tharp trying to hawk the brand to anyone that would pay to have Tim Storm on a title match. It was really depressing in 2016. The best news in 2016 was heard that there was going to be a 2017. And that's when the people started bidding to try to buy the NWA. Billy Corgan wasn't the only person, but he had the highest bid, evidently. Poyo says wrestling changed, so he can't be held accountable for all those things. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Poyo. Poyo says they absolutely can produce 10 pounds of gold as a means of truly building up future stars. It's a matter of manpower to create the series. I do agree with that. I just meant that the way it was, the way that the NWA was, That version of 10 pounds of gone, I think, is gone. That version of 10 pounds of gold is gone. I never heard Billy be so emotional. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of personal hurt right now. Him and Aldis were close for a very long time. Obviously, that friendship is probably doesn't exist anymore. But with that being said, and guys, Billy Corgan has a tendency to have tumultuous. Is that the right word? No, I don't know what the right word is. He's had some bad relationships in the past with bandmates, with contemporaries. And I mean, look, the way that the NWA kind of disintegrated over the years, like he lost a lot of parts. We don't talk about it, but anyone remember Marine? Anyways. Carlton says the problem is Jim Cornette resigns and it failed afterwards. I don't think Jim Cornette was the guy that powered the NWA. I mean, he was a cog in the machine. Jeremy says he volunteers to do the 10 pounds of gold. I tried to do a 10 pounds of gold. If you guys ever go look on my videos here, I did the Legacy of the Alliance, and it was supposed to be a 10 pounds of gold featuring jazz, and it was a lot of fun, and I thought I did a good job. But man, that's a lot of work. And I mean, you could watch the video. It's kind of Bush League. It's amateur hour, but I really did try to do something different. And I very much was emulating the 10 pounds of gold. I don't know if it came true to that. Carlton says that Aldis was the best thing for the NWA. I don't disagree with that, but you notice what you said was the best thing. Is he the best thing today? I don't know. I can't tell you that for sure. Latimer for world champion. I like that. Doty says it never failed with or without Jim Cornette. The NWA still runs to this day. That's also true. The NWA has never died. I hear people saying, "Oh, the NWA is going to die again." No. The NWA has never died. That's what makes this so compelling. This 74-year history of the National Wrestling Alliance, formed in 1948, with Lou Thez carrying that 10 pounds of, well, it wasn't 10 pounds of gold then, carrying that title and unifying all those championships, the territory days, the Jim Crockett promotions, the Bruce Tharp era, the Bob Trowbridge era, the Impact era, all of these things led us to this very point. Shane Douglas throwing down the belt was not the death of the NWA, and neither is Nick Aldis leaving. It's just a new era. Roswell says, push Church's money. That would be kind of cool. Willie says, Aldis was the ambassador to the world's heavyweight champion for the NWA. He was, but that doesn't mean there can't be a new ambassador. Aldis, just don't go to the WWE. Yeah, that's right. Fiona, up to my eyes in it tonight, but listening, and just wanted to say hi. Fiona, you're very much appreciated. I hope you know that. Thanks for being here tonight, listening. Poyo says it's a culture clash of two incredibly strong personalities with differing point of views of what the product offering should be, and that's okay. Like that's just it. If Nick Aldis is leaving because he doesn't like the direction of the company, I don't blame him. In fact, Nick Aldis doesn't owe anybody anything, right? He could leave because he doesn't like the way Billy Corgan brushes his teeth. He's not a slave to the NWA. He's free to go, and he's going. He's exercising his freedom. That's the beauty of it all. The free market. He will see where he fits. And maybe he doesn't have a home. And maybe he comes back. Maybe he finds 2 homes or 3 homes. Or maybe he just disappears from the world of pro wrestling. I don't know. But that's his right to choose that. When Billy has a vision, he will not be swayed by anyone or anything. He said, look, Billy said it multiple times. He books the NWA the way he wants the NWA to be. It's his show. Poyo says, I'd have personally booked him to put over as many people as possible in the next few weeks. Poyo, I would have done the same. I would have had him put over Odinson. I would have had him put over Jack Stain. I would have had him put over the Thrillbilly. I would have had him put everybody over. And when he left, we'd throw a party for him, and we would have doused him with champagne and say, thank you, Nick. Thank you for everything you did for the National Wrestling Alliance. We're sad to see you go. We hate to see you go. But we know that this is the time and place where you need to go and do what's best for Nick Aldis. Thank you. That's just my 2 cents. Mickey has a name, Kamille doesn't. Sure, but at this point, in this day and age, is Mickey James selling 10,000 pay-per-views? I know Kamille isn't, but is Mickey? And if the answer is no, then what do you got? And Billy has no problem with airing dirty laundry in public, truth or fiction. He'll get his side out. Yeah, and I don't love it. I don't love that about Billy Corgan. In fact, he's very hypocritical of how he said that Nick Aldis was handling the situation, but it is what it is. Roswell says, I think everyone understood that Kamille spot. Thunder Rosa did and then left. Yeah. Daryl says the creative direction needs to be directly led into the pay-per-view. Cardona has spent more time messing with Freeman than interacting with his title match opponents. No story will make me not interested. I think the problem with that is I don't know that they wanted to do a triple threat match at the very beginning. And yeah, you're right. The storyline is so just disconnected. It doesn't make sense. And I agree that there should be the correlation. Each episode of Power should be building to the next pay-per-view. Until the TV ratings are making more money for the NWA than the pay-per-views, the pay-per-views are where they need to put their effort and energy, and everything needs to lead to those pay-per-views. Billy lost two great wrestling minds with Corny and Lagana. Who does he have helping him now? I think he's working with Pritchard. I think Pritchard's there. He also has Pat Kelly. Used to be known as Simon Diamond. Samar thinks it's still a work. Man, if it's a work, they got us all. But to what degree? Like Nick Aldis isn't going to be at the pay-per-view. If anything, we're talking less about what we should be talking about, the pay-per-view, and talking about Nick Aldis. If it's a work to get Nick Aldis over, hey, we're all buying into it. Unfortunate for the pay-per-view because no one's talking about it. Porto says, and you don't have Nick Aldis as people think of him today without the NWA. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship, which allowed both to grow the credibility of the other. 100%. And I'll even take it back to like a guy like Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce was just an indie guy when he first became world's heavyweight champion. It was the hard work that he put in with the NWA that made him not a household name, but made him attractive to Ring of Honor, made him attractive to the WWE as a coach. And I don't know that Adam Pearce would be working as a producer and agent for the WWE if it wasn't for his time with the NWA. So you're right, Poyo. It's got to be mutually beneficial. It's got to be symbiotic, something like that. They need to work together because if they're not building each other, what's the benefit? Blue Demon was world's heavyweight champion, and as champion, he took the belt to Japan, to the UK, but nobody in the NWA was booking him but Dave Marquez. So when you could say all these accolades that Blue Demon Jr. had as world's heavyweight champion, but the NWA didn't care. All this is doing what Punk did, and Punk is getting fired. I don't think that I don't want to say it's the same. But I don't think that Aldis should have been airing those grievances publicly anyways. I think that's kind of a bad taste. Willie says Billy should have stayed working with Marquez even after the Lagana left. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And who knows, maybe there could be a reconciliation there at some point. Time and money, guys. Time and money. Dodie says Corny never had a charge in the NWA creative team. Losing Lagana is a bad thing, but losing Corny not so much, Paladin. And Lagana proved to be a troublesome individual. Keeping him will not be good either. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that, Dodie, and I don't want to try to pretend that I can dissect that correctly. It just sucks that Lagana did a lot to help the NWA. We'll leave it at that. Pipe, what's up, Pipe? I haven't seen you around a while. In desperation, they will put the belt on Tyrus. Fox News will promote it. Hey, maybe. BDM5 says the pay-per-view sold out, but not due to all this. Exactly. James says Nick likes to hear himself talk, and he found a way to try and be the focal point of Hard Times 3. I mean, there's probably some truth to that too, James. Going to try to skip around a little bit. Sorry, guys. We are out of time, but I enjoy talking to you. If you guys want to hang out and keep talking, we'll keep talking. We'll keep going. Poya says it's a long-standing tradition that there is no one person bigger than the whole. There's always a talent chomping at the bit to step into that void in the spotlight. I mean, look at Bret Hart. Bret Hart was a role model to Nick Aldis. Bret Hart was a guy who, again, at the time of the whole Montreal screw job, you know, he was demanding to Vince about where and when and how he was going to lose the title. But he was just one guy. And Vince had to protect his entire company. And I'm not saying that there's been any sort of screw job here. I'm just saying that, you know, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. He said Aldis blocked Marquez's Twitter account. That was a long time ago. Chris says, what happens if Kamille starts looking elsewhere? Then she leaves. Again, you have KiLynn King. You have Natalia Markova. You have Max the Impaler. You have Chelsea Green. You have, if it comes right down to it, you've got Madi Rankowski. There's a slew of talent. Hell, Kenzie Page. Hell, Allison Kay, for crying out loud. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money talent in the NWA. When it happens, because it will, Kamille will eventually move on. Thom will eventually move on. Everyone you love in the NWA will eventually move on, whether they retire or go to something bigger, better. But in the meantime, that doesn't mean we can't focus and celebrate the champions and the men and women who are coming up through the NWA. He said he blocked everybody. Jeremy says, for my money, Thrillbilly could have filled all the shoes just fine. I mean, I don't think they're the same guy. They definitely have different points of benefit. We'll see. Paladin says that I've been watching Kamille interviews and she has been mentioning Jade Cargill's name. Well, yeah, because they're the two biggest, beefiest women out there. And I don't mean to sound creepy or anything, but I mean, Jade Cargill's built like a beast, and Camille's right there with her. Paladin says Aldis should have worked with Kenny Omega when he was doing his belt collector gimmick, but he ran away. I mean, look, that would have been fun for some of us, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad that the NWA didn't get mixed up with that whole belt collector thing. Onward and upward. Exactly. That's just it. Both parties, man. For me, as a fan, I have no ill will to Nick Aldis. I have no ill will to the NWA. Let's just keep moving forward. Let's see what happens next. Fee says, if you're going this weekend, have a blast. I'm aiming to make it back if there's a Crockett Cup next year. Fiona, I'm hoping for the 75th anniversary show. That's where I want to be next year. Aldis never ran away from Omega Paladin. It's just about NWA and AEW don't see a potential of working together. Yeah. And that's part of it too. There was no working relationship with AEW in the men's division. They had that working relationship with the women's division, and even that fizzled out. Poyo says the backstage of the NWA is crawling with young, hungry stars who can absolutely blossom with opportunity. 100%. I couldn't agree more with that. And here's my favorite comment of the night. It's the Pope's time. It's the Pope's time. Oh, God, that's music to my ears. If they put the belt on Tyrus, it's the Pope's time. Got it, Paladin. Got it. Pipe says, correct me if I'm wrong, but Aldis brought in his buddies into the NWA. Where do they attract talent now? There's so much talent. Look, half those guys in the NWA today are not Nick Aldis guys. I mean, you could make the point that Crimson is. You can make the point that Thom Latimer is. But, I look at a guy like Jack Stane. He was involved with the NWA long before Nick Aldis was. Tim Storm was with the NWA long before Nick Aldis. You look at the Pope. You look at Tyrus. You look at Trevor Murdoch. These aren't Nick Aldis guys. Half the roster is not Nick Aldis guys. More than half the roster. I don't think that's a problem. And honestly, I don't think Thom Latimer is going anywhere either. There's opportunity for Thom. Why would he bail? What is his end game? I think he knows that if he sticks around and keeps doing what he's doing, he could be that next Nick Aldis. He could be the next world's heavyweight champion. And honestly, that's probably what all of us want to see anyways. I don't think that Billy Corgan, to answer your comment, Rick, I don't think Billy Corgan is stupid enough to begrudge any talent because of their relationship with Nick Aldis. That would be a stupid, stupid move. I think if you have a star, you allow that star to shine. The shine brings more eyeballs to your product. At this point, with everyone talking about how bad the NWA is and everyone talking about they're going to cancel their subscription because Nick Aldis is gone, the last thing you want to do is alienate any more fans. In fact, now's the time, I think, to start pushing a guy like Thom Latimer, who the NWA faithful have been behind. I know that we're losing time, but you guys are still here, so we're going to keep talking. I know Power's starting right now. You could watch it right now if you take off. No hard feelings. If you want to stick around and talk some more Nick Aldis, NWA, we can do that. I'm here for you guys, and we'll keep talking for at least another half hour, and then you can catch the replay of Power later. James Bell says, outside talent is nice, but I like the folks we have to continue the growth of the company. 100%. There's a lot of good talent already there, but that doesn't mean you can't pick up some extra pieces that might make sense. You know, what's the guy that I always think about, and I wonder what's going on with him, is Paul London. Do any of you remember Paul London? I think he was a former WWE Cruiserweight champion. He was a indie darling for a long time. He would be a fun addition to the junior heavyweight division. Paladin says, Aldis was asked many times in interviews about working Kenny. The comments were full of people who wanted to see that match. Aldis knew he would lose, so he declined. Again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. I'm fine with him not accepting that match. We move forward. We saw what happened with Impact when they allowed the title to be on Kenny. It didn't really benefit Impact at all. I don't think it hurt them, but I don't think it benefited them either. If Nick Aldis returns to Impact Wrestling, will he use his real name or go by Magnus? I think at this point he's going to stick with his real name. He's line of the night, man, and this is what I've said for years. The NWA is like a legacy and cockroach at the same time. It's hard to kill. It's hard to kill, and probably will survive a long time as it has. You guys don't know how good you have it right now. I remember being a fan of this brand when you had promotions in Kentucky who the only way you'd know about them is if you followed a Yahoo Sports e-zine. And the only way you know the results of Al Snow wrestling Chance Profit for the NWA Blue State Heavyweight Championship was reading the e-zine. There wasn't a YouTube. You couldn't see those matches. And if there was a YouTube, these guys weren't taping these matches anyways. I know it sounds crazy, but this NWA has existed for such a long time because it evolves. It evolves. And what we're seeing Billy do right now might be different in 5 years. And what we saw Billy do 5 years ago is different today. It will continue to evolve. It will continue to change. It has to. Let's see. I'm going to try to get to more of your guys' comments. Pipe says, Billy bought the history of the NWA. I think he truly wants it to be successful no matter what the cost. Any wrestling fan with his influence would do the same. Pipe, 100%, man. I agree with that 100%. I never once thought Billy Corgan bought this as some sort of, well, I'll take it back. I do think it's a vanity project because I do think he wants to be the one to save the NWA. I do believe that. And he takes a lot of vanity in that. But I also feel like he also feels that has value, and it does. It's a history brand. It's a legacy brand. There's only one NWA, right? There isn't two NWAs. You can't talk about the American Wrestling Association the way you talk about the National Wrestling Alliance. You can't talk about ECW the way you talk about the National Wrestling Alliance. There's nothing quite like the NWA in the history of pro wrestling. It's one of a kind. It's unique. Billy owns that. Willie says triple threat matches stink like dead skunk. I don't love them either. I don't, but it is what it is. Jeremy says Aldis and Mickey hold the Empowered and Strictly Business trademark along with a trademark for Figure Mania. Maybe we see something involving those things. Yeah, and that's cool, man. I don't mind. Look, if Aldis wants to go start the Nick Aldis Wrestling Association, go do it, man. I want to see what he's going to do. The market is wide open for pro wrestling. There is a ton of saturated, there's a ton of nationally distributed wrestling programming right now. There are a lot of indies that are starting to pick up that next level. I'm one of these guys. I want to see everything. If Aldis has a good product, I'll watch it. Hell, I'll talk about it if that's what he chooses to do. But who knows? Rick says Pat Kenny is helping out. Samar says the storylines are always kind of off. Yeah, I do agree that the storylines are kind of off, but it is a Billy Corgan show. If you're not happy with that, it's not going to change. We've been complaining about the show for 2.5 years now, and no one's doing much different. And it turns out that Nick Aldis agreed with a lot of our complaints, so it's kind of fitting and somewhat feel validated. But in the meantime, it is what it is. And until Billy Corgan decides to take a step away from the booking and allow someone else to do it, that's what it's going to continue to be. Now, there's always bright spots in some of the silly storylines, but there are some of the crappy storylines, and that's just what it is too. Pipe wants to remind you all to hit that thumbs up, and I do appreciate it. You guys liking and following. It means a lot to me. It helps keep the show, gets more eyeballs here. We've had more people watching today than we've had in a very long time, and I'm grateful for each of you watching. That's why we're going extended. I mean, we ran 11 minutes longer than we ever do, so I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Nick showed his lack of class with his attack on the NWA and its fans. I wouldn't have done that. I personally wouldn't have done that. I'd have kept that shit in here. Do the shoot interview afterwards, brother. You're still under contract. You're still getting paid. Like that's kind of a shit move, if you ask me. But at the same time, maybe he feels like it's warranted. I don't know. I wouldn't have done that. Rick says Marquez had a certain charm to the show. I agree. I loved Marquez on the show, but I'm a Marquez guy. Dave Marquez, I consider Dave Marquez a friend. I've been to his Christmas parties. You know, he's a guy that I like. He's a guy that I trust. I go to film his matches. Photograph. I like Dave Marquez, and I think he puts out on a good product. I flew all the way to Atlanta to see his product. I've driven all the way to Arizona to see his product. Flew to freaking China. All right, so I'm a Marquez guy. I admit it. But I think he added a lot of value to the NWA, and he sorely missed. So I'm not going to speak on any of it. I like Lagana as a person. I don't want to talk about anything more than that. Lagana always was kind to me, always fair to me, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't know the details. I don't need to know the details. Paladin, thanks, man. I do appreciate you hanging around here. And Jeremy, always. I can't believe you guys are still commenting. It's awesome. We'll just keep going. We don't need power this week. We're going to just run all the way to the pay-per-view, man. Forget power. Pipe, it's cool, man. It is 100% cool. We appreciate seeing you here. If you can't ever make a show, feel free to watch the replay. But the live chat is where it's at, my man. And that's a lot of fun. If you can make it, make it. If you can't, we'll see you next time. That's without a doubt. Paladin says it's okay just to Paladin quit bullying people, man. Carlton says look without core. Carlton, I hope you say something else because I don't know what that means. Wrestling with MMA wants to see if we could see a Dark Shirk in the NWA. Maybe Dark Sheik. Maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath just because I know that I know that the Dark Sheik has said a lot of controversial things about the NWA, and she, I don't know if she would be welcomed in the NWA just because she's been very negative about the brand, but I don't know. Doty says, push through Billy, AJ Kazana, Jordan Clearwater. Look how MLW and even Impact has doing okay, but their world title to indie guy who never in the big league. Right, Doty, right. Trevor Murdoch is on a good run right now. I don't know if I would take the belt off of him, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't push guys like Jack Draper, Jordan Clearwater, Marche Rocket, Scion. I mean, there's some good guys on this roster. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Pipe says Sandoval's out of his mind right now. Well, yeah, he was a Nick Aldis guy, and that's the thing. Let me take a drink real quick. That's the thing. If you're a Nick Aldis guy, you're crushed right now. You should be crushed because the guy that you supported, the guy that you championed, the guy that you loved is now no longer with the company. But the great news is you could still be a fan of the NWA and still appreciate wherever Nick Aldis goes next. It's totally okay. We're going to see a divide here of some fans who are strictly Nick Aldis fans, and they're going to walk with Nick Aldis, and that's cool, man. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe in tribalism. Like, I just enjoy what I enjoy. Right now, all I watch basically is the NWA and occasionally Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I go to their events live, so I don't really watch it later. I'm itching to check out what MLW does. Hell, maybe we might do an MLW podcast. I don't know. But I can't believe when people like hate WWE or hate AEW or hate Impact. Just love what you love, man. Who cares? Nick Aldis is gone. If he starts another wrestling promotion, if he joins another wrestling promotion, cool, man. Go enjoy it. That's totally cool. If you enjoy what the NWA is now, then keep enjoying it. Willie says, push Dak Draper and Jordan Clearwater. I agree. Media says, hey, keep the show going. We can watch Power when it's over. That's all right. Roswell says the Pope. Yeah, man. The Pope. That guy. He's so much money. I'm telling you right now, Daddy. Nick Aldis is a great promo guy. I don't think he's so much better than the Pope. Nick Aldis is a great wrestler. I don't know that he's that much better than the Pope. How long has it been since we've had an African-American world champion? And I look, race shouldn't be everything, but come on, man. The Pope winning the world's heavyweight title, whoo! That would be money. That'd be fire. Paladin says he doesn't watch a show until they air on YouTube, so he doesn't care. Daryl says you could ask the talent to step up, but the company also has to provide that opportunity. Pope has for an extended period of time, but he's currently in a lesser position than he was months ago. Daryl, you beautiful man. I agree. I do agree. There was a time and place when the Pope and Nick Aldis made all the sense in the world, and I'm talking about the 73rd anniversary show. They should have ran with that. Instead, they went with Trevor Murdoch. He had a very dismal run his first time as world heavyweight champion. I think if you'd have put the belt on the Pope at that 73rd anniversary show, I don't know how different things would have been, but Pope was fire, man. And you're right. They do need better opportunities for these guys. I agree wholeheartedly. But it is what it is. You know, you're right. He deserves the opportunity. Talent should be presented with these opportunities. Now they don't have a choice. The front office doesn't have a choice. They're going to have to find replacements for these guys. If Aldis is gone, you know, we don't know how much longer EC3 is going to be around. We don't know how much longer Matt Cardona is going to be around. You got to start building up your stars while you still have them. Fans are canceling subs because of Aldis. Man, you know this ain't no storyline. Yeah, people are going nuts. And I get it, man, because if you're a Nick Aldis fan, you were watching the show for Nick Aldis, you must have hated the last season because you didn't get any Nick Aldis. Rick says, keep going. I usually don't watch Power when it airs. All right. Well, we keep going. Dodie says, I only cancel all access sub when I ran out of money or Billy pulled the plug, not because guy A or girl B leaves. Yeah. If you're a fan of the NWA, like me, you're going to be stick here for the good and the bad. Maybe we're in a bad part right now. Maybe the good part's just ahead. Got to stick around and find out. You start canceling your membership, you walk away. That's cool. You can always come back later. There's no rule that says you can't jump off a fan bandwagon. But it's just, to me, that's the evolution of the product. It's going to change. You know, when Ric Flair left to go to the WWE, Jim Crockett Promotions didn't shut down, didn't go away. I mean, eventually got bought out, but that's a different story. No one piece is greater than the whole, ever. Roswell says, bring Lockhart and Austin Aries back and let them create a program that works for them. All right. Paladin doesn't like the Lockhart because he's a communist. All right. Hey, red, white, and blue, brother. These colors don't run. Willie says, bringing Laredo Kid to the NWA USA. He'd be great competition for Homicide. I think Laredo Kid recently got hurt. And I think he's working with Impact anyways. But yeah, I like Laredo Kid. He was at the 70th anniversary show. I got to see him also wrestle in Tijuana with the Crash. Great talent. Absolutely. Would be a lot of fun. Dodie says, yes, Dario Lockhart should return to the NWA Revolution time. I'm good with that. Look, more talent, the better. Everyone loves Laredo Kid. That's cool. Medium 5 says, that's right, Jay. That's how it was for NWA Smokey, too. Nobody put their stuff on YouTube, really. NWA Smokey put it on that indie wrestling TV. Nobody knew who they were. Yeah. And it was, I mean, Chase Owens was freaking wrestling there. Jason Kincaid, Matt Sigmund. You know, they had some good talent. Rick says, at one point, my NWA fix was NWA Mountain State, NWA Smoky Mountain, and NWA On Fire. And I'm sure there's some others I can't remember. Smoky Mountain was a good watch. Mountain State was a hard watch. Great production. But I remember one time specifically, they were wrestling in what basically was a bar. And a woman sat right in front of the camera, smoking her cigarette, drinking her beer, cutting out half the match. And they just put that on their YouTube show. So it was cool. Paladin says, I think you mean Billy bought the NWA to be part of his legacy. Yeah, to be part of his legacy, or Billy to be part of the NWA's legacy. Because at the end of the day, you know, 74 years is a long time. I don't know, you know, when I'm not wishing death on anyone, right? That's not what I'm doing here. But when Billy Corgan does pass away, what happens to the NWA then? Does his kids want to run it? Does his wife sell it? Does he leave it in a will to Nick Aldis? I mean, what happens to the NWA when Billy Corgan is no more? And, you know, does he get sued and settles out of court by giving someone the NWA? Who knows? Until those things happen, he is the NWA. So we just expect it to be like that. Carlton says, Billy is losing it. Just last week, we were trashing the NWA, and now after losing the biggest star, everything is going to be all right. This is why you need a territory system. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of working towards that, and they haven't called it out specifically, but the Kazana family working in Kentucky, tried and true working in I'm not sure what part of Tennessee that they're in, but the Hawk family with Wildcat Sports. I mean, these are all promotions that have been working with the NWA as of late. The Love Actually charity that the Pope runs, that's 4 different promotions that in the last year have done NWA events, not to mention the charity events that they've been doing in Chicago. Or maybe it's not Chicago, maybe it's Wisconsin. I'm not sure. Anyways, what I'm saying is they kind of are doing that. We aren't talking about it because it hasn't been presented as factual yet. But if you read the tea leaves, they're already doing that. They're building a territory system within this system. At least that's what it looks like to me. Yeah, thanks to AEW, wrestling has seen another golden age. That could be true. Kikuchi says they are off full. I don't know what you're talking about, but you're probably right. Kikuchi doesn't lie. Dodie says having a guy as credible as he said to keep believing in the NWA after all the years probably is invaluable treasure. So does having people like Jay. Man, the Heasa's been carrying this torch a lot longer than I have. And Heasa's got what Heasa has done is the reason why this exists. Like, he inspired me. And there's a lot of great NWA history. And I would hate to see it disappear. Hopefully it never does. Billy doesn't really need TV time on the show either. That's one thing I don't really care to see. Just comes off as odd every time. 100%. Rick, I can't tell you what looks so freaking distracting is when Billy Corgan picks up a title belt and holds his fist up like he's a fighter, like he's a wrestler. That dude's probably never had a fight in his life. And it just looks absolutely ridiculous when he does it. As somebody who said he didn't want to be a character on the TV show, he certainly has become one. I agree with you, Rick. I'd like to see him disappear. Paladin reminds you guys to put that thumbs up. We've got 12 likes. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. And there's still 17 of you wild, crazy people watching the show, so props to y'all. Dave Marquez is arguably the man credible enough to make territory systems work in these days, and he doesn't even believe in territory systems can work today. So it is what it is. True. True. Dave Marquez was looking to do a territory system. That's why there's Memphis. He was working in Atlanta, Arizona, of course, Hollywood, and then he had other areas he was looking to expand into. None of those really panned out. But with all that being said, they're looking to enter into new markets in 2023. Don't be surprised if you see another championship wrestling from blank, part of the United Wrestling Network in 2023. And I know they're doing more shows in Arizona next year. They'll be doing one in December. It's going to be a big show in, I think, Phoenix or Mesa, something like that. Anyways, Jaden says, Kikuchi says, I like the pre-party because there's no Jaden. Yeah, you only get Jaden on some of the Alliance Guys podcasts. Paladin says it's clear Aldis is trying to get fired. Yeah, and I think he is too. Like, I think that might be the end game, but why not just ask for your release? They've done it before. You know, they've released people out of their talent agreements before. I don't. Why wouldn't you just release the guy? Billy was asking to be a developmental for AEW or WWE. He's killing the NWA. I disagree, Carlton. And I don't think he was asking to be a development. What I think he was asking for is he'd be willing to work with those promotions with their talent that are not being used. And yes, to an extent, that is kind of like a development, but I don't think he was looking for them to take any kind of conservatorship of the NWA. I don't think they were going to tell him who to book or what matches to make. I think he was going to bring people in to feature on TV to get more TV time. However, that's kind of a misnomer when you're only running literally like every quarter. And in those quarters, you're only running like you're doing either 1 to 2 pay-per-views and then 2 to 3 television taping days. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. Where's the benefit for the WWE or AEW to send talent so what they can work an extra 4 days a month or 4 days a quarter? If they were running consistently, it might make sense, but right now it sounds stupid. I wouldn't do it. Where's the added benefit? Oh, you can use my guy for 4 days and then send them back home and use them again in another quarter. It doesn't do anything for them. Now it helps. Maybe it helps build their name up because they're seen on 2 different programs, but that doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense. Pipe says, I didn't watch wrestling for 10 years. Then I seen Aldis commercial for the video game. Came in watching the 4th episode of Power. Thunder Rosa had me hooked. Talent will come and go. 100%. 100%. And Paladin, I'm a cyber bully. Damn it, Paladin. Play nice. My pal, the mayor's here. Let's be honest. What other organizations would have signed Nick Aldis during this time other than possibly Impact? It might only be Impact. Impact might be the only promotion that would sign him. There's other opportunities out there. The UK scene's growing. As Paul Lamar brought up earlier, the WWE might be interested because of the NXT Europe. Who knows? I don't know. If I'm Nick Aldis, I don't really want to live in Europe either, though, when my wife and kid live in the United States and near Nashville, Tennessee. That's the other thing that's really perplexing about all this is he could have just shut up. He could have just sat there and took the paycheck, showed up to do the pay-per-views, still be put in a pretty decent spot, do TV tapings, sleeping in his own bed, getting paid lots of money to do this. He chose not to. That's pretty telling, too. Pipe says we need more Russians in the NWA. Sure. I don't know if the Russians would do well in this era with the attack in Ukraine and everything. I don't think that would go over so well. Rosville, oh, man, the battery's dying. We're going to run out of time, guys. Rosville says Kazana and Clearwater was a good match last week. They're a pre-show match for the pay-per-view. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it's also the TV title, and I don't think the TV title should be decided on pay-per-view. It's kind of a catch-22. Paladin says Impact would be great for Aldis. He has a history there, and his wife is working Impact, and the company, he can actually be a top guy too. Yeah, I get that. Kikuchi, we are sponsored by Dubby, and as earlier in the podcast, we were sharing with everyone watching that Dubby is a energy drink that basically the best part about it is you don't get jitters. So every time you drink it, you get that energy, about 2 cups of caffeine or 2 cups of coffee. Let me try that again. The caffeine is equal to about 2 cups of coffee. And when you drink it, you don't get the jitters. I used to drink a lot of Bang, Rain, Monster, all those energy drinks, and I'd always feel a little shaky afterwards. This one is a very clean energy. I feel very good when I drink it. In fact, if you order off of the merchandise link You get 10% off your first order. I think actually every order. So check it out. Wrestling with MMA says Clearwater has an amazing run with the United Wrestling Network Heavyweight Championship. Yeah, he's the United Wrestling Network World Champion, and he's had Kazarian, not Christopher Downs, Kazarian, Chris Adonis, Colt Cabana. He just had his matchup with Carlito. I'm excited to see what's next for him as well. Dave Scooby's got his tickets for January 7th for MLW. I need to get to an MLW show. I've got a lot of shows I need to go to. James Bell says, so Nick and Dave are on the outs, and now Nick and Billy are on the outs. It seems to be a common denominator. Yeah, but remember, Dave and Billy were on the outs too. So, I mean, there's a lot of common denominators. Excuse me. Willie says, I'm still a loyal fan of NWA Pro Wrestling. Willie, no one's asking you to do anything but that. You can enjoy any wrestling you want. I don't care. James says NWA all the way. Yeah. Paladin says, I watch Impact in the NWA and AEW. Yeah, all this is good stuff, man. Love it. Pipe says, do the Pope TV title run like we wanted with him cashing in the Lucky 7. Yes, a complete redo. I'm good with that. Honestly, I think he's got the merit right now where he shouldn't have to go through that, but I'm good with it. It'd have a good storyline behind it. Willie watches USA, Power, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and Impact. Those are all good ones. Media M5 says Latimer, Pope, Tyrus, Cardona, Adonis, Clearwater can hold almost every title in the NWA and have an interesting program. Yeah, man. Paladin says that the WWE is interested in Green and Cardona. So, yeah, I mean, they might run. They might be gone, and that's okay. Because when Cardona leaves, that gives more opportunity for Jack Stain or Jordan Clearwater or somebody else on the brand already. If many cancel NWA pay-per-view due to Aldis, then maybe they aren't real fans of the NWA. That's it exactly right there. That's it 100%. For those of you watching on TikTok, my battery on my phone is going to die soon, so we'll see you later. Palin says that's too much TV for me. Yeah, I agree. That's a lot. Dodie says Scion is doing good as a traveling champion right now. Friendship ended with Aldis, now with Scion. Huh. I'm not sure what you mean. Bring Cyrus the Destroyer because me and Billy love the big guy, and I love some All Japan wrestlers. Yeah, I heard that he's trying to get a match with Tajiri. I saw that on Twitter. I retweeted it. I would love to see that happen. Wrestling with MMA says the NWA needs to put gold on Clearwater sooner than later. I agree. I think he should be TV champion. I don't think he's going to be, but I think he should be. Paladin says a lot of ex-WWE talent have gone to AEW. It's the first time I've ever seen him, like Punk. I've never seen him wrestle before until he went all elite. Now I'm glad to see him go. Fair enough. Willie Bowen is a fan of All Japan. Paladin, Pipe. I tried to watch WWE. It just doesn't hit me, or I just don't get it. It's not for everybody. And that's the thing about pro wrestling. That's the coolest thing about pro wrestling is that there's a flavor for everyone. If you don't like the WWE, you might like AEW. You might like New Japan. You might like AAA. If you don't like any of those, hell, you might like the NWA. You might like Impact. You might like indies. There's a lot of indies out there. You might like All Japan Pro Wrestling. You might like MLW. There's so much wrestling out there. You can find something you like, I think. Pipe says, I didn't win the Powerball, but I would have bought into the NWA. Yeah, I would have too. I'd have loved to buy the NWA. Let's see. If you're looking for a great NWA TV show during the Bruce Tharpe era territory, then look no further than Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Metro Pro, Rampage Pro, Wildcat, and now NWA working with Wildcat again. Yeah, I forgot about Metro Pro. That was a great program. A lot of great title matches. Pierce was very popular in that area too. Man, we are going super late. Call the affiliates. Tell them we're going late tonight. James Bell says, isn't the NWA also working with a group out of St. Louis? I don't know. I don't know for sure if they're working with that SICW. I think they just brought in the world champion. Roswell says, Defy in Seattle is one you need to get to. Defy is a pretty interesting program, but they don't have TV. I know they do pay-per-views and stuff, but yeah. Paladin says, so much wrestling going on right now, it's a resurgence. It is. It really genuinely is, and it's a great time to be a fan of pro wrestling. But with that being said, guys, my battery is literally dying, and I don't have a backup Jeremy says there's very little wrestling I don't watch. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe we'll do some more off the script shows like this in the future. Again, the end of an era, but not the end of the NWA, not the end of Nick Aldis, just a transition. And I think we'll see a new NWA this Saturday at Hard Times 3. We'll be talking about it on Thursday. I'm sure Jeremy and Scooby and Tim will be talking about it with the other guys tomorrow. I hope you'll check them out and see what they have to say, because I know they're going to be talking about it. You can't not talk about what the NWA is going to look like going forward. And yeah, I'm out of breath. You guys are awesome. This was so much fun. Hope to see you on Wednesday with the other Alliance guys. And we'll see you again on Thursday with the Alliance guys. And then DKM and I will be at the pay-per-view. And who knows, maybe we'll do some pre-show content. Stay tuned. Until next time, we're going to see you guys at the matches. Have a good night now. Thanks for checking out the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. You should hit that subscribe button and join our community. I also want to remind you that we recap NWA Power every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the live stream. We try to stay social, so find us at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the Alliance.